Hey everybody, DJ Moran here. If you're just joining us and you're scrolling through YouTube, what you're looking at is myself connecting with a group of students in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan about head form and then moving us into point cutting. Hey guys, we tried yesterday to get together as a group online. It's trickier than I thought it would be. However, what I'd like to do is try again today. So there's really three things I was trying to share, and that was into point cutting, razor work, which I'm going to do in a separate video, and how I can help you guys behind the chair. First things first, where we struggled a little bit yesterday was mostly in our sectioning, which had really nothing to do with what I wanted to share. So that was my bad. So here we come again, take two. Here we go. Sectioning is the only sectioning pattern that we've shared since in the interior since we've been together. Let's review it again. So, section number one was always starting and finding the highest point of the head. So when we came into the top, our first section was here. And why it was so important to find that high point is that high point is the intersection of the hair. I've got a lovely, from the highest point of her head, and I'll get into it to be able to share, that's the intersection of style. That's where most people make the decision to move their hair back, forward, side. So it's really important that we're able to address and find the highest point. So from the highest point, if we break it down, we saw that we created the crown and the top when we broke down and found our ridge line. We add the nape section, and really those are the intersections of everything we're going to do in this haircut. Now I share with you that is this haircut. It's one of a million ways to do this. I know Mr. Moran's working with you in the school. He's going to have a different way. I know Marcus is working with you. He's going to have his own way. What I'm sharing with you is a blueprint and a pattern that can evolve. Let me share with you. In our first section that we take, if now we're looking at the top view of the head, here's my ridge and my highest point. If we were to go and take our first section, we subsection in the crown a section no wider than my own 2 fingers. Now, this is one way to do it. You guys just came back from a program in Winnipeg where you learned some new cutting techniques. I'm going to share with you, Rusk is a company that's going to take your finger angle and switch it, but use the same basic beginning point, and they're going to create a halo from it. There's a lot of different ways to attack this, and we're going to go and evolve together on how we can grow and use them. But this is just one. If we can get this one down, we can move forward. So as I came through here, I'll draw this a little bit better. We had body position number 1, that's center chest, center section. We reviewed this the last time we were together, and my goal was to have you do it repetitively and get faster and faster at it. It is going to be the main thing that we do all the way across here. So when I took this section, it was no wider than my own 2 fingers and no thicker than my own 2 fingers. That's how big a section we took. We traveled back right until we got to our ridge line. Why that's so important is we need to be able to establish where that volume needs to live, and everything beneath that can sit flatter. That's where volume lives, is from that natural round up. And again, we shared how to find that using a comb, bending it together, finding a tail comb, running it through. Again, I like doing it with a tail comb that's metal because you can stab her and it's a lot more fun, but again, it's there for you. The next thing we did here is we moved over to body position number 2, and we cut this piece of the crown. Then we move over to body position number 3, and we cut this piece of the crown. So that finishes the crown section. Before we move on, we cross-check it to make sure we haven't missed the section. We cross-check every section as we move forward. The next section was the top. I shared yesterday starting on the far side. You can start on either side, moving across the top of the head from ridge to ridge in sections no wider than your own 2 fingers, only cutting between the first 2 knuckles. Important that you're in body position number 4 as a right-handed hairdresser, so you're always cutting to tension. Okay? Lastly, we carried this haircut around from the side, so this is again, which looks like Gumby. right? Now we will have cut from ridge to ridge. Now we're taking vertical sections in through the sides using this piece here as a guide. So as we use that as a guide, we then were able to elevate this hair. We chose vertical to the room. That would be my guideline. Whatever came up and above it came off, but really being aware of my red zone. We continued that pattern all the way around the head. So from the side view, there's my ridge. Here's my guide. Vertical sections, no wider than my own 2 fingers, traveling all the way around the head, finishing it off. So step 1 and 2 is the top. Step 3, we finished there. Now, the last part about that was my body position always changes in the same relationship to my section. So when I stand in my section, I walk around my haircut. Again, this is just in review. We went over this when I was with you the last 2 Mondays. Let's see if we can move forward on this point cutting. So, if I'm going to share with you where I'm going to go, here's my mannequin. I want you to be able to see 2 things. Just the top of her head. Right? And then you can see my fingers as well. Using, again, my cutting comb that I use is larger in a sense. If you think of a traditional cutting comb, it might look like this one. Right? Having a bigger hand, I like a bigger comb, but again, really making sure I work with 2 sets of teeth. One for combing, one for finish and control. Now, yesterday we talked about point cutting. Why point cutting was significant and why we point cut is rarely do we want straight lines in a haircut. I have to be honest, the majority of the work with my shears in the interior of a haircut is point cut. Okay? To go over it again, we had a straight wrist. We took our wrist from a straight position, and we saw some online yesterday cranking it over, doing it this way. Carpal tunnel lives there. We're going to keep a straight wrist. We're going to keep one blade moving, and then we're going to add our fingers like a salt and pepper shaker, but we cut only on the outstroke so we don't cut ourselves. So you can see I can come in contact with my fingers and close my blades and not be worried about cutting myself because I'm only moving one blade and I'm cutting on the way out. So moving into our haircut here, I'm going to stand her from the side profile, keep her back so you can see. So I'm going to take this section in from the highest point. So the highest point of the head, I'm going to comb it the direction I want my parting, target part. I put my comb on the flat part of the head. Where it leaves the head, there is the highest point. I'm going to comb that over, and that will come straight back. Okay? So now, where I am within my section is right here. I'm going to take a section no wider than my own 2 fingers. And no deeper than my own 2 knuckles. My head's a little bit wobbly, work on a makeshift mannequin. So there's section number 1. Highest point there, right here within the haircut. Standing straight in behind my section. I'm going to pick it up vertically, okay? And now I'll share with you that I'm point cutting. So I'll turn so you can see, but now I'm closing on the way out, closing on the way out, closing on the way out, but cutting nonetheless. Now, point cut will vary based on the depth. You can get deep within your point cut and have a different shadowed line. As deep as your blades can go, as long as the hair will match. If it's so long, you can turn it over and point cut and get deep V'd out sections if that is the texture you're after. When we're together on Monday, we'll talk about the difference. But now again, I'll move to my next step, which is here. I haven't moved, still body position number 1. Standing in behind my section, combing vertical section. You can see my guide travels back slightly. I comb it vertical to the room without over direction, straight up, and there's my guide. So as I take that straight up, I find my guideline and I point cut away. Again, now I can take it deeper if I want to, but I'm going to point cut that through. Last section right here on my ridge. And again, avoiding missing this is a big deal. You want to make sure that you can hit that consistently. Comb on the top, a comb on the sides, if they 45 degree together, it's right there. That is where we're going to take my last section from. Coming in and across. Straight up. There's my guide. Picking it straight up. Okay. You can see my point cut has got angles and movements to it. Again, you can go much deeper if you want to, depending on the hair type and end result. Again, we'll get together and share, but when I pick this straight up now, notice how it's still a visible clean line, but it's got lots of movement to it. It's not a blunt finished edge. So now I'm going to move over to body position number 2. Here, again, this is all section that's simply in review of what we shared when we were together. Picking this hair straight up. And again, if we can work together on simple understanding of body mechanics, we can grow and do a lot of cool things when we get together with you. Picking this up, there's my guide. Point cutting it out. Again, seeing lots of jagged edges, but finishing exactly at my ridge. Picking it straight up again. Now I'm finishing right here. Body position number 2, last section at my ridge line. Now this is a big section. You may not want to recomb and do it in 2 because I'm past my first 2 knuckles there. Picking this straight up. Now again, I am focused on this particular cutting pattern because it will be the springboard of when we use our razor. Are there other ways to section and do the hair? Absolutely there are. Moving now to body position number 3. So as I move around now, my sectioning, there's back to my highest point, there's my ridge. So now I know I'm working in this section right here. Combing across, target part. I know I've got some of my original section as my guide. Combing this straight up. There's my guide. Going straight up, vertical to the room, and we're going to point cut that away. Okay, now how my mannequin's set, you can see my original parting. Okay, now my last parting again, right to that ridge. Combing this across, picking this straight up. There's my guide. Again, you can see it there. Pulling it from my ridge over here, where my last section was. It's always on the other side there. Picking it up, cutting to my first 2 knuckles, recomb. Okay, and now I've cut the entire crown. I should be able to cross-check now my entire crown section and have a relatively clean line. You see when I bend my fingers it opens a little bit more, but at the end of the day you've cut the crown consistently but with lots of movement in it, so when they fall you don't see the layers as much. That hard edge is gone, so when it falls it creates more fluid motion inside your haircut. So now as I travel forward, I've moved to body position number 4, sitting here. So now what I'll do is I'll comb this straight back. Okay, find my ridge here, and I know I have a guide all the way along that highest point. So anywhere in this section, I have a guide. So I'm going to comb this straight back, and then I know that as I pick this up, I'm going to have a guide at the tension of my fingers. You can see it right there. So as I pick this up, I can turn again, so you can see I'm right at the ridge, center chest, center section. I want you to see where I'm going. I'm going to pick that straight up. There's my guide. Point cut it away. Picking it straight up again, just checking my time. Checking my time, it says there somewhere. Anyways, combing this straight up. There's my guide. Taking it through like that. So I'm going to finish this haircut moving through the same way that we've talked this whole time. But again, The key is clean sections, picking them straight up vertical to the room, but getting the mechanics of point cutting. The fact that I can come in there, take it away. Now, there's two different kinds of point cut that we do. We do a dry point cut and we do a wet point cut depending on the situation. Again, from the football background, I call it down and distance. But we're going to pick this straight up. There's my guide. Last section at the ridge on the far side. Okay, cross-check the whole thing. And you see we've got a relative, oh, missed this piece. Totally cool, but nice finished edges. Now, my last section is going to be coming in through this side. So I take a piece of my guide here. I take a section no wider than my own 2 fingers. I pick it straight up. And I walk around the haircut, keeping my relationship to my section the same as I walk around. So I'm going to have to move as I walk around the whole thing. Again, the premise now isn't so much the haircut that we're doing, what the end result will be. My goal is to share with you online the point cutting technique. If you can go in, point cut, create a movement, and keep your scissors nice and clean and moving, but the key is the straight wrist, you got it. So, we will review and finish up this haircut together when I see you next, but I'll show you in the next section how to finish this haircut and point cut a little bit better, more for finish and texture on dry hair. See you in a second.